Tō katoa, no mai haere mai. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first Environment and Infrastructure Committee for the year. I am chairing in place of Councillor Brown, who is currently overseas. But let me start with a karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu. Hey, Mauri ora. I declare the meeting open. Welcome. Please let me or te ao know if you need to leave. Apologies. We do have an apology from Councillor Brown. I will move the motion. Who would like to second? Deputy Mayor. Let's move that to a vote. We're just waiting on you, Councillor McNulty. Fab. And that has passed. Do we have any conflicts of interest? Nope. Confirmation of minutes. I move the motion to approve the minutes of the Environment and Infrastructure Committee held on the 30th of November. Who would like to second? Councillor Matthews. Let's put that to a vote. And that has passed. All items are on the agenda, so we now move to public participation, and I welcome Lisa Davidson. You can speak either at the lectern there or at the table. You have 5 minutes to speak, and that does include questions as well. Kia ora.
Okay, this is coming out of my 5 minutes. As we all know, Wellington has ample rainfall. The problem is the copious, widespread leaks from the ageing pipes infrastructure. Having spoken with Wellington Water, I understand there is a lack of qualified water technicians to deal with the ubiquitous plethora of this leakage conundrum. But the primary problem is the pipe infrastructure. I understand Council is considering a 15% rates rise and or water metering with an apparent $120 million budget for water metering installation in all homes. No one I know supports water metering without fixing the leaks and given our abundant precipitation. It doesn't matter what the Kapiti Coast Council says the benefits are. They are arid and desiccated with sandy soil, and Wellington is a completely different climatic and clay environment. It's a different kettle of fish altogether. One is in favour of a 15% rates hike, but I definitely think any councillor who votes for both will find themselves electorally redundant in the next election. It's inconceivable that Council has not petitioned government for contribution or more extensive generosity, or have approached suitable lobbyists to advance this increasingly imperative case. We are the citizens of the capital. If you swing it the right way in Wellington, it can be done. Parliament is just there. I extend a possible funding addition to any proposal so far, if Council have not already considered it. Private sponsorship of sections of the repiping with small naming rights to that section, for example, a plaque. We've seen examples of this for seating at the Embassy Theatre and on a far larger scale, sections of highway in the United States. In summary, I wish to know if the 15% rates hike and or water metering funding to the council are going to a band-aid of, I'm assuming, overseas hireage of professional water technicians to fix the leaks, or undertaking the beginning of the incredibly onerous but ultimately inevitable mending of our infrastructure without making the ratepayers go broke. Ngā mihi, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We do have a question from Councillor Wineta.
Thank you for that colourful speech. How do you propose the city might best locate, measure and identify and ultimately isolate leaks without ubiquitous metering?
Because we all call the council, and ultimately that goes to Wellington Water, to report the leaks. They're intrusive and they're in all of our neighbourhoods. It's geographically Wellington-wide, and I've had one, and I've got a number for it, for more than a year now. So it's brought to the council's attention.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Free.
Thank you, Lisa. Do you accept, though, that if you have water metering, there's more of an incentive for private leaks to be fixed? And I think we have almost half of our leaks are actually on private property.
I don't accept that at all.
Okay.
Why?
Well, because you're getting paid, you pay for the extra water that's going through your property that's being leaked. So, the bill goes up quite steeply unless you fix it.
A majority of the leaks are on council property, they're not private.
I actually said about 50%, which is the figure I think we've been given from.
Okay, but why should taxpayers pay for all of the council leakage?
I hear your answer. Thank you.
Councillor Chung, short question because we're nearly at time.
Thanks very much, Lisa. I appreciate you coming in this morning. I'd like to ask you, I'm very keen on ensuring that our water does get the proper funding from us to actually get fixed. So what would you be willing to give up, taking it out of the budget, to actually put into the water repairs?
What would I be?
Well, like, if we have to take something out of the budget, what do you think that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing in preference of putting the money into the water?
I only see two ways of fixing this problem. We either employ, Wellington Water either employs more people to fix the leaks, but that is a bandage over the prime cause. What we need to do is fix the pipe water infrastructure. I know that is a huge task to undertake, and as this council, it could only be the beginning of that. But you can't have a 15% hike in rates and water metering come in at the same time. I think that's completely unacceptable, and so does everyone I know.
Thank you, Lisa. Really appreciate your time. We now move to 2.1, so petition lifting the creek. So please welcome Jenny Rattenbury to speak on this petition. Sorry, Jenny, you too have 5 minutes, and that will include some questions. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. I distributed a handout to support our petition, and we're asking for two things. We're asking for a small amount of funding, between 30 and 50,000, to develop an overall plan to remediate the water problems that we have in Houghton Valley, and we also ask that we have a say in the choosing of the consultants that go with that, because we want to have consultants that will work with us in a collaborative way. And we have several aspirations as well. Again, we want a collaborative process, because that will help us build our community, get our community members fired up in a collective process. And we want to align that with a 100-year vision that we're developing for our whole community, including the environment. We want to embrace te ao Māori values, whanaungatanga, manakitanga, kaitiakitanga, and rangatiratanga. And we would love to achieve the same legal rights for Haiwaihauten Valley catchment as the people that live in it. So that's the main thing. I have included, we're saying that the funding for the actual construction would happen later, happen in stages, and we've itemised a few stages for your perusal later. Anyway, we prepared this document in good faith to support our petition, and what we're trying to say, it's a modest request for funds, but a very, very big request to respect the process. And yet we find in this agenda for this meeting that despite having asked for a collaborative process, there is already a predetermined solution put forward by Wellington Water that totally disrespects our petition, and it disrespects the rights of mana whenua. So last time we asked for a solution for this valley, we got a fancy plan and we got deodorant put in our pipes. This time the officers are asking to spend $7 million. It's a lot more than deodorising the pipes, but to my mind it just sounds like a high-tech Band-Aid, literally, you know, sealing up, lining the pipes to stop any water leaking out. But we have engineers that advise that the leachate actually is designed to get into the pipes, and faulty though they are, the pipe system does actually get quite a lot of the leachate into the sewer system. And if we seal off the pipes, all that leachate is going to accumulate outside, and it might be forced into our spring water system, which will destroy our emergency water supply. It will seriously affect a local business that makes mead using the spring water. If it just travels down outside the pipe, downhill, it's going to affect the water table of the people who live on top of the stream bed below the landfill, and it's going to end up on the beach outside of the pipe instead of inside of the pipe. So the solution also doesn't address the stormwater running off the roads straight into the marine reserve and picking up contaminants from the roads. It doesn't address the methane, which will still form when it rains and infiltrates into the landfill. So we're asking for a natural overland water system. We have an engineer, Stu Farrant from Morford Environmental, who totally supports our concept and is prepared to collaborate with him. And if you want to spend $7 million, why not spend it on a sustainable solution that suits the community, it suits the mana whenua, and solves so much more, and it's cost effective.
Thank you, Jenny. That actually brings you to the end of your time, but that was a perfect way to wrap up your speech. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
I now welcome Chris Matthews to introduce the report.
Hello everyone, good morning. I brought my glasses today so I'll be able to read, which is quite exciting. Firstly, thank you for the petition. It's really good to always hear from the community. This is a long-standing challenge that we've faced, but I'd like to provide a bit of context, which I think will help. So, I mean, as a council, we manage 34 closed landfills across the city. This is the regulator in this space is the regional council, and we have to work closely with them to monitor the quality of the landfills. Last year, they introduced a new section of the resource management plan called Section R82, which requires us to do an assessment of all closed landfills across the city. We've selected 3 to start creating the report to feed back to the regional council. Houghton Bay was one of those. So we've commissioned this report already, is with an independent consultant, and this report will be released back to us in a final version within the next couple of months. Once that report is released back, I'm happy to bring back the findings to discuss with the council. Now, we need to discuss this with the regional council as well as Wellington Water, but this report will help inform what the challenges is, and it will give us an idea around what are the next steps that we need to take. Now, we know for a fact that this used to be a closed landfill. There was a sizable stormwater pipe running right through the middle of it. The landfill was built on old grey wacky, so it's quite impenetrable from a material point of view. But this stormwater pipe, we know via CCTV footage through independent consultants and through Wellington Water that it is leaking. So we have reached out to Wellington Water to ask them what a solution would look like from a hydraulic point of view, and they provided us back that it would be around $7 million. I mean, and this would be a councillor decision if you wanted to support that in light of all the other priorities in the water program. That's really all I have to say on the matter. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much, Chris. Can you tell me, with this seepage coming through the soil, are there any health issues, or can you outline the health issues that there are for people?
Well, that's what the report is looking to address.
Yeah. Have you any idea about the danger to, apart from health issues to people, but to sea life and anything else? Is that going to be in the report as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take an assessment of the leachate and associated environmental and health concerns, and it's going to give us some advice on what they believe our next steps should be. And this has to be done in consultation with the regulator.
Great, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Foon.
Kia ora, Chris, thank you. Can I just get an understanding with the ask of Wellington Water, or what we know, are we confident that what we're suggesting in with the pipe, that will actually have an overall holistic, ecological, have we taken into account the whole ecological picture of the water ecosystem?
We have done some assessment, and again, I think the report is really what we need to inform this. But what I can tell you is the CCTV footage report that I've seen, that stormwater pipe is like a waterfall of leachate going to the system. So you have a period of dry weather, then you get some heavy rain, and that pipe leaks, and that pipe is a stormwater pipe that goes into the ocean.
Yeah. Okay.
I think if you were to solve that, that would go a long way. However, I really need the report to inform me on that.
Yeah, okay. And so so probably the next question then is around just understanding, so there is some budget, so we're required to be able to remediate landfills. Do we have budget that would be able to be put forward for any reports or toward the 7 million or towards the outcome available?
Well, there is a landfill provision account
Yep.
that we use as a regular BAU to maintain and manage our existing 34 landfills, and we do have some funding to go and fund these investigative reports and do some minor maintenance. However, if you are looking for a more expensive capital solution, that's something that would have to be decided amongst councillors.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Pauiwi Hohaia.
Kia ora, Chris. Thank you. Just on, I see in the report it mentioned that Greater Wellington doesn't actually test the water in Houghton Bay. I would have thought that would be a sensible move. Is there any council intention to test the water at Houghton Bay?
Well, that's really a regulatory obligation of the regional council, not of Wellington City. Of course, you're welcome to lobby the regional council. However, that's something that the regional council would really need to respond to.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
I'm not sure if this is for you, Chris, or for Stephen, if he's in the room. I'm conscious with the work programme, we're being told to be very careful about what we load into the bureaucracy of officers and reports to look at. So I guess first question is with the amended substantive, is this in the purview of your team to actually handle from a resource perspective?
Do you want me to? Who's going to answer that? Are you going to answer that? Do you want me to? Oh, if Siobhan wants to answer that one.
No.
So I can answer that. The only thing that will be challenging is seeking other funding opportunities with government for a holistic solution in terms of the resource required to do that. We are not aware of any other opportunities there are on that.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. And this is related to the required amount of money. So yesterday we heard that we, other than the budget based on 23-24, we weren't putting any extra money into our wastewater or stormwater budgets. Can you just have we got some insight from Wellington Water about what, of the bigger picture? Because obviously this sounds important, but I know we've got other parts of the city with similar issues.
Yep.
So how do we, how does this jump the queue, or do we need to really think about this, how this fits into the wider issues?
I mean, on your first point, there is obviously budget in there for stormwater and wastewater over the LTP. So there is funding there. It comes down to a prioritisation.
Yeah. I just said we weren't planning on increasing it. Will you stop interrupting?
Team. We'll
tell her she's doing it.
Yeah, let's let Chris answer the question. We'll just.
So we continue to work with Wellington Water on the priorities. Obviously, we do have some pretty significant wastewater and stormwater priorities on coming up over the next 10 years, and then ultimately it's a decision for councillors if they determine that they want to prioritise this project above the others.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Neill.
Kia ora, thank you, Chris. I'm aware that we have had several reports over the span of over a decade around the water quality at Houghton Bay, and I was just wondering what new information are we hoping to gain from this upcoming report?
Well, I think this is, the R82 is a new legislative requirement from the regional council. So I would have thought this report would assess against our requirements as a local council to manage the landfill and then to provide some advice. So without seeing the report, it's a little bit hard to comment. And as it's a new legislative requirement, we don't have previous reports that we can rely on to kind of determine what are the likely outcomes and solutions from it. But I think once we have this report, it will provide a lot of insight into what our requirements are, their assessment, and any potential solutions.
Can I just ask the second one? In terms of when we've spent some time down at Houghton Bay, we've got engineers from Wellington City Council, we've got engineers from Greater Wellington, and sometimes the two groups point the finger at the other. What kind of understanding the value of why,
Yeah.
if we're, and hoping to have a really nice natural environment to go into, we need to do more than just relying on a regulator. So how do we see a more proactive approach with working with Greater Wellington or vice versa around protecting and enhancing the stream?
Yeah, well, I think it is a case of relying on Wellington Water's advice on this matter and working with the regional council. I mean, they are our trusted advisor. They provide us advice on stormwater assets. So I think we just need to understand what this report says, then go and talk in collaboration with Wellington Water and the regional council to work out, what is the best solution for this, and then it's up to the councillors to prioritise that amongst the other program.
Councillor Free.
Yeah, I'm really concerned, Chris, that you said that when it rains, there's a veritable waterfall of leachate going into that pipe. And I'm thinking about what Jenny had said, that actually the leaky pipe allows the leachate to actually get into the pipe and be discharged to the weir and treated through that system. And I'm wondering if whether there's a holistic enough approach, just putting a sleeve down the pipe without anything else. And I'm wondering how we're going to get reassurance about that, because it didn't sound to me like the complete solution in any shape or form.
Yeah, well, again, I don't really want to speculate on what the report is going to say, but I can tell you that the stormwater pipe is leaking, and if you were to fix the stormwater pipe, that would stop the leachate that comes from the landfill. I mean, all landfills produce leachate. In this case, leachate comes down and goes into a busted pipe essentially, and then below, what's below that is grey wacky, which doesn't. It's not a lot gets through grey wacky. It's a very solid substance. So the report is going to cover all of this information.
It sounds to me like there's a risk, and I hope the report covers this, that if you did sleeve the pipe, you might create other problems. So I hope the report's going to cover that.
Yes.
The other thing is, if there is this RE2 new legislative requirement, I assume that would come with the regional council actually knowing what's going on with the receiving environment and measuring it. But are you saying they don't measure the water quality in Houghton Bay?
They don't measure that's how I understand it. They don't measure the water quality in Houghton Bay. It's not one of the waterways that they monitor. However,
but it is a very popular swimming beach.
Yeah, well, that's really something that the regional council would have to answer.
Okay, we can write. Right, we will perhaps need to take that up politically. I don't know, but.
Thank you. And final question from Pauiwi Hohaya.
Kia ora, Chris. So just on Houghton Valley closed landfill, my understanding is that it is actually quite unique and that it's not lined. Is that right?
That's right. It's actually not that unique, because none of the landfills of that era were lined. The only advantage, the advantage that you do have, and I use this term lightly, is that it is on grey wacky, whereas a lot of the other ones are just going straight into dirt and it gets into waterways a little bit easier. But yeah, there's a majority, certain high portion that they just weren't lined back in the day, unfortunately, and we are dealing with some of the ramifications of that.
So just one last, if I could. So in terms of the report that will come back, will that give us a sort of sense of whether a more holistic solution than a sleeve and a pipe might be feasible or useful?
I honestly don't know. I haven't seen the report. I'm not sure exactly what the regional council and the consultants are going to recommend.
Okay.
It could, it may not, but what they're going to be looking at, they're going to be looking at it through the eyes of the regulator. What is our regulatory requirements and how are we performing against them? And then they may have some next steps for us. That's what I expect will come out.
Thank you.
Great. Now, before we move on to debate, we're just going to take a 5-minute adjournment to finalise the amended substantive. I will ring the bell when it's time to return. ready to move back to debate. We're just waiting on another councillor. Deputy Mayor Foon will move the motion. Would you like to speak now?
Yes, and kia ora, Chair. And firstly, as the mover of this paper, I do want to thank Jenny and Grant and Adam and all of the community for bringing a petition. I do understand this isn't your normal modus operandi and that it has been a big undertaking for you. But the truth is, without it, we can't really, it's harder to make headway. So thank you for doing what you've done for you and your community. You know, and what we are hearing is that we really do need to understand a holistic solution, or even at the start to get a picture of actually what's going on in Houghton Bay. And without that picture, we can't really move forward in the best way possible. Jenny, I want to acknowledge your ask of the process. In council life, nothing's perfect, but please try and hold us to account on that process. And what we've tried to do with the amendments today is to acknowledge that and make sure we're moving through this together. What I also just want to say is that, you know, for decades now, my decades of living in Wellington, I've known this leachate problem to come on to the south coast and into Houghton Valley Beach. And the reality is that we've got more people populating the area. The south coast is now a desirable place to be, to work and to play. And when I was growing up, the south coast wasn't as loved because we were actually discharging our wastewater out of Mile Point, and it's such a different place now. So when you're there, you've got so many people now at the beach, especially with the amazing weather going on, but all through the year, people at the beach and in the parks. And the reality is, having been down there myself often, it is actually a very uncomfortable feeling seeing children play very, very closely to this leachate on the beach. And it's something I'm not proud of for our city. So I'm moving this paper today, just bringing the amendments. Really what this is about is not staying here thanking you for the petition, but actually asking officers to bring all of the best information we can back to us so that we have a really good understanding on what to do next and how to go forward. But I think what we do need to understand too is that there was a $7 million ask, but councillors, I think among us, can we please discuss what this might look like in terms of the long-term plan, and I'll personally reach out to you to get your views on what we can do going forward. And just acknowledging that we have a lot of problems, and I know that Jenny, you and your community are very, very aware of this, and I think your proposal is very generous to do this in staged approaches, but let's work on it together. So councillors, I do ask you to support the amendments that we're bringing today, and then help to continue this kōrero as we go forward, looking for solutions that meet the needs of the community, reduce the pollution, and take a holistic view on making this place a beautiful place that all Wellingtonians can continue to be proud of. Kia ora.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Free.
Yeah, I will speak now. So this has certainly been a very live issue with the community since I came onto council more than a decade ago, so it's not a new issue. And I think the Houghton Bay community has actually been very patient over this issue. They've realised that we've had other landfills that have needed attention as well, that there are limited resources and you can't fix everything. But I do think that 10 years after marine, or more after a marine reserve was created in this area, to still have leachate that smells, that's discoloured, and discharging into an area that we're trying to present as a showcase for an ecological area is a really poor look. And I was quite surprised by the proposed solution. I knew that it wouldn't meet the community aspirations in any respect on its own. It may be a part of the solution, but certainly not the whole solution. And the community has long desired to have a way of keeping the groundwater up on the surface, creating a swale or a creek, the idea of lifting the creek and keeping the water on the surface where it can contribute to the ecological values of the area and the wildlife of the area. And there could be rain gardens or wetlands or something that goes along with that. And the community is really well behind this and able to do some of the groundwork to help make this happen. So I wouldn't like to think that the solution was just an engineering solution. For an area which is a little bit overlooked, it's a beautiful area with people that are, just said to the residents who've come, with people who are actually living very healthy, long lives and loving this area as much as we all love our own areas. It actually deserves a little more respect. So I'm happy to support these amendments. I'm glad that we're not just leaving it in the current state that it came to us, that we've added to it as politically, and listening to our community. I look forward to seeing what will happen for this area.
Great, thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Kia ora, thank you. I just briefly wanted to speak on the issue of what's been going on in Houghton Valley, and to acknowledge that it's been well over a decade and many decades for the residents living in that area that have sought to remediate and put a great deal of their own personal effort and their own advocacy around Te Mana o Te Wai and making sure that our streams and waterways are healthy. We've had a great number of kōrero around this, and last, I believe, discussing it, we were talking about prioritising Houghton Bay when the new water entity was set up, and there was another policy started by the last government of Te Mana o Te Wai which saw aspirations and worked alongside mana whenua, but just before Christmas last year, the National Coalition government delayed that work till 2027. So we know even more, particular being in Wellington, where we have such a rich ecological background and environment, that it's really important now more than ever that we are proactive and we are holding Greater Wellington to account. Greater Wellington is holding us to account on ecological safety. I pulled out those two examples because I believe that Wellington City Council is world leading in all of our fantastic things of releasing native kiwi into the belt and removing the last rat from the peninsula. But what's just as important is making sure that our wai and our streams are healthy, so that people can engage with the natural environment. And that's just as important. It's a part of the big picture. And when in an ecosystem, if we can, prevent overflows of leachate or stormwater overflows flooding into the marine reserve, then we'll see greater outcomes for everyone that lives on this whenua.
Great. Councillor McNulty.
Look, I wanted to acknowledge the petition, say thank you for bringing it to us. There's obviously clear merit in the proposal and to what the Deputy Mayor is speaking about. To Councillor Calvert's point, though, for me, looking in future decisions, this does need to be a bit more holistic. We have the Porirua stream in the Takapū Northern Ward, and Greater Wellington's own water quality monitoring gives us an F- on every single water measure, including sewage. So these are clearly issues that go across the city, and there is a prioritisation to be done. And for me today, I'm in a position where this issue is now on the radar, but for future consideration, I'll need to understand how it balances against the other ecological issues that we have in the area. And obviously, we're constrained in what we can do. So I just want to say thank you. There's merit, but looking forward to discussing this in the context of the wider issues that we have around discharge, sewage and leachate in the city. Kia ora.
I'm not seeing any other requests for debate, so I will hand back to Deputy Mayor. Right of reply.
Yeah, kia ora. And I think I just want to acknowledge the massive work that was done yesterday to get us to where we were, to what we're looking at, investing in our full water system. But I think the reality is, as we've seen on the last triennium in which I've been in council, there's always a bit of fluidity that has to happen as we make these decisions. So, and already with even making calls yesterday, we've got another call that we need to look at and juggle and work out how and where this sits. So yeah, just thank you to the petition bringers, thank you to the officers, and I think we just need to make sure we're all working together with how we land the pathway going forward. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I think that brings us now to the vote. So let's get our remotes out. Just waiting on you. Oh, there we go. Fab.
The vote button is next to the hang up call button in Teams.
And that has passed unanimously. Wonderful. Thank you, officers and our public, for that petition. We're now moving to 3.1, the Half-Cost Path Policy Review 2023. Please welcome Siobhan to introduce the report.
Morena, councillors. So this paper in front of you is asking for your approval to consult on the revocation of, which is a preferred option, of a policy that dates back to 1934. So this is a half-cost path policy. Under this policy, council funds 50% of the maintenance costs of any pedestrian path that serves 3 or more houses. The property owners sharing the path have to collectively fund the other 50%. So the original justification for this was there would be enough foot traffic on these paths to warrant public funding of what is essentially a private owner benefit. So we've been considering reviewing this policy for several years, and the reason being is that it's not well understood, and it's nor is it consistently applied despite the best intentions to do that. So often it's administratively very, very burdensome. When it comes to maintaining these paths, council officers have to approach often multiple property owners to seek their contribution. It is very rare that you get agreement to that contribution, and as a result the work just doesn't get done. There are around 300 half-cost paths across the city, about 1,000 property owners who currently benefit from the policy. High-level estimation of the cost to maintain the paths is around 2.7 million a year, but as I said, we don't often spend that, given that it's difficult to get agreement. We are looking for your support to consult on the revocation of the policy, and we will be targeting the consultation with the impacted property owners, as well as an extensive public consultation as well. It's not going to be an easy fix, even if we revoke the policy. Once we do that, we do have to reach individual legal agreements with each property owner who currently benefits from the policy. So there is quite a bit of work to be done post policy revocation. We have suggested that should the revocation be the preferred option once we have consulted, so having taken on board, that we would bring those paths up to the original safety standard. So you're basically providing this path to the private property owners in a satisfactory condition, and the cost of that's estimated to be $1.3 million. The other complexity of this policy is around retaining walls, and that's also an area which has been really confusing for both officers and owners alike. So I think there is another amendment coming through from Councillor Free around asking a question on retaining walls, which we're happy to cover off, but that's really covered by our slip policy. But there's a lot of work there to also clarify that, especially given the higher incidences of slips. So happy to take questions. We've got Shu, who is the author behind the consultation document and the statement of proposal. And we've also got Brad hovering because it's his team that has to administer this policy.
Great. Any questions? Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much for this. The valuation of these properties in these private streets, is that affected by the fact that they are in a private lane and not maintained by the council? So that is there any difference in the valuation?
I don't think we wouldn't have looked at that.
Okay, so there is there would be a benefit then to those houses in those streets if the council were to take over maintaining the footpaths.
Oh yeah, that's one of the options that we're consulting on, but that's not the preferred option. The preferred option would be to have the owners take accountability for the maintenance of those paths.
Yes, I understand that. But
at the moment, they're getting a benefit from council paying half.
Yep, I understand that. But I'm just looking at what the difference is between the council doing things and them doing it, that's all, so, to the valuation of their houses.
and we're not aware of any impact. We haven't looked at that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
Is this funding, the half-cost part, coming from the city straight funding the same, or is that different?
This, like Siobhan mentioned, this is a very, very old policy from the 1930s. Currently, it's funded through our maintenance and renewals budgets. So whenever we need to fund a half-cost path and undertake work on a half-cost path, we use our maintenance and renewals budgets to do that. So not city streets.
But it'll be a footpath budget, not a road.
Yes. Councillor Randall, sorry.
Thank you. So just to get it straight, so this is footpath to a group of houses that's on what is most often road reserve that really is only to the benefit of those houses.
Correct.
Okay, and so just a couple of questions. The council permitted the buildings of those houses even though they have this access type. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
And the other thing is you mentioned about the standard to which you wanted it to be done. What you're sort of saying is that the council will dictate the standard the footpath needs to be done, but the homeowners are going to pay if your recommended approach goes forward.
No, we would pay to bring that path up to standard if it needed it, and then hand it to effectively hand the responsibility over to owners.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. So we're going to actually get it right and then hand it to them to say you keep it like that. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Free.
I'm just wondering if you're anticipating legal issues when you come to, or arguments or challenges when you come to actually rewrite all the agreements, and what legal advice we've sought on doing this?
Yes, this policy has been steeped in legal challenges since we've ever tried to enforce it, and I suspect when we come to having to reach individual agreements with each property owner, that will be arduous.
And the other thing I suppose will come out in the consultation, but how do you see the parity between a house that's not in this position having a paid-for footpath to their front door versus, presumably there's a pathway because you can't get a footpath. So how does that stack up in a sort of a fairness aspect?
So it's difficult to comment from a fairness aspect, but public footpaths are for the benefit of all residents in the city. And the council's granted permission for homes to be built and for homeowners to have access over road reserve to those properties that they've built. The benefit of that access is only to those private property owners and not the rest of the residents of the city.
Okay, and just for my fellow colleagues, I just wonder if you can confirm you're fairly happy with my amendment. I'm not. Yeah.
Can I answer the question? So we are happy to explore, a range of options, but under the current road encroachment policy, and it does not cover this kind of situation because the encroachment is for exclusive use of our road reserves for private use. Not at the moment. Most of the retaining walls you are concerned about is the council's property assets.
Okay, I have come across some instances where people have been expected to pay. But yeah, I think the more the point is, would you agree that we're just collecting some information about how people see the fairness of that?
Yep, I think it's fair to include a question.
Okay. Councillor Randall.
Yeah, just one more point. I mean, as part of this policy, where we're going to say you've got this exclusive benefit, so therefore you should pay, there's no intention for us to then extend further to say, actually, now you've got this exclusive benefit, we want you to pay an encroachment fee for your path. It's really just to try and just move on from the 1930s policy.
Yeah, like I said, under the current encroachment fees encroachment policy, it mostly only covers those heavy construction on the land, not only a path. When we talk about exclusive use, you can easily imagine even if it's a path serving more than 3 properties, everybody can still use it up to the gate or some kind of private property section.
Great, thank you, officers. Would anyone like to move this paper? Great. Yep, we'll move it as the amended substantive.
Thank you. I'd be very happy to move this paper with the amendment included. I do have a path, and I pay. My neighbours and me do pay for maintaining it ourselves because it isn't on. It's on some private land. So I think in some ways it's fair for us to go out with this preferred policy around the pathway. But I have some. I do think we need to seek some. Feedback from residents on the issue of the retaining walls on road reserves, because I have come across some instances which have seemed to me to be really unfair. So the road has been cut in to a steep bank, which the road has actually made the bank steeper. The person's property on top of that has been impacted to the extent where they've wanted to put in some sort of retaining wall. They've had to pay for it. And thank you. And not only that, but in one instance, they were asked to pay an encroachment fee. I'm not quite sure why. I know it was handled and some resolution was reached, but I do think it's an area where we've got a lot of steep banks and things in Wellington. It's an area where we do need to seek some feedback on what's actually fair, because these retaining walls are expensive if they go wrong. Do we have a seconder for this? Oh, thank you, Rebecca. I'll just leave it there.
Councillor Matthews.
Yes, just briefly to thank staff for their work, and thank you, Sarah, for that amendment. I think that's useful. I just wanted to make a point on a side issue, and I hate to sort of single out this paper, but I had a very good answer to the question I asked about the disability impact statement, which provided background about why it said there was no impact of this paper. I would like to see us kind of, and like Democracy Services, sorry, I'm talking about disability impact statements, and I would like to see us apply more rigour to that point, because I have often with papers seen no impact, and when I went back and asked questions, there was an impact or an explanation to be made about where, I know this is consultation, however, the issues of who maintains access to residences over time, including the work that we will do to get these up to standard in the first place, do clearly have an impact for disabled people and anybody experiencing mobility issues. So just a kind of a plea, don't mean to single this paper out in particular, it was something that has been grinding my gears for a little bit of time, and so I do want to see a little bit more rigour when it comes to those disability impact statements, because it should be very rare that we hear that there is no impact. Thank you.
Great, I'm not seeing any further debate. Any final comments, Sarah? Sorry, Councillor Free. My bad.
No, I do think that there will probably be a fair range of views on this. So I think we just put it out for consultation, and we invite, and I would like to see it well publicised too. Yeah. I don't think this is an issue that just affects a small number of people. There are lots of people who visit people who live in up these pathways, and there are, that issue of retaining walls is quite a broad one. So I look forward to what our community's got to say on it.
Wonderful. Let's put that to a vote. And that has passed. Thank you. So what's our vibe, councillors? Do we want to try and get this? We've got one more paper, so we try to be out of here by 11, or do you need a break? Keep going? I'll take that. Did you see me and Diane? Oh, here we go. We're going to move on. We're going to move on to the next paper. So welcome to Chris Matthews and Diligenda Upal to introduce the report.
Your councillors. The purpose of this paper is to request for you to approve the WMMP. I'll just provide a little bit of background about how this works for any new councillors who haven't been through this process. Every 6 years, we have a legislative requirement to produce a WMMP. This allows us to access the waste, the waste levy, which is managed by MFE. So for every tonne of rubbish that we put into a landfill, we pay a levy, which is $30. That levy then goes back to MFE, and they redistribute it based on households. When this money comes back into the council, it is ring-fenced to be used only on waste minimisation activities. So the WMP, all the activities there are funded by using the waste levy. However, if there are projects that fall outside of that funding capacity, such as the organics processing business case that we're working on, or the resource recovery network, it comes back to the council via a business case. So we've worked. It's the way that the WMP works. It's a regional document that we've worked with the other 8 councils to develop. And we have a whole stack of regional targets in there, and we also have local action plans. So this work is, Dylan and his team have done an extensive amount of work over the past year, working with Councillor Pannett as the chair of the Waste Minimisation Committee. And so we have undergone extensive community consultation on this. The feedback is detailed in the paper, and we've taken on the feedback. It is pleasing to report that the majority of the feedback from the community was very supportive. In fact, they probably want us to do more. So we're always trying to balance aspirations with what we think we can achieve with the available budget. The action plans will be followed by an implementation plan, which we'll bring back in June, which will provide more information, and that's it, really.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions? Very good. Councillor Pannett, would you like to move the motion?
I will be brief, but I just was reflecting today how difficult it is to be waste-free. I tried really hard. I got my $20 dress made in New Zealand. I got my vegan Vegas sneakers. And I'm going to wear them until they kind of got holes in them, but they're still going to end up in the landfill. And so even when consumers and businesses do the right thing, unless we've got the right infrastructure and systems in place, we can't move to our great vision of a circular economy. So it has been my privilege to lead this process twice now. The second waste plan we went for a waste-free vision. We've developed and moved along a bit further from that to go to the circular economy, which is where we are finally going to be able to, or eventually be able to develop products that can be used over and over and over again, and so we don't need to use the tip. There's a huge amount of people that have been involved in this. I'd like to give a special thanks to Yvette, Dill, Chris, Lisa, Nigel, consultants, and many other staff from the councils who have been very devoted for a number of years. My councillor colleagues on the Waste Committee have been fantastic, kept me accountable, challenged me, and we've had some very robust debate because this committee has a variety of opinions. The last committee I sat with had a stronger waste background. This committee has had a broad focus. The submitters have been fantastic too, and often these are people who are delivering great waste initiatives in our community all over the region so that we can get to our goal. So we have done lots of work, and look, we've said it before, but let's say it again. Having Siobhan, Barbara and Chris on this issue means that we have got where we need to get to. We have a whole lot of initiatives, 12 projects, which are helping to get to us to our goal. So we had lots of robust debate. We went into great detail over what the wording of the vision would look like, what the targets would be, what the objectives would be. But I think I'm philosophically very comfortable with them. We were talking about using less resources, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, landfills as a last resort. The targets are quite ambitious for local government. Everything takes a long time to get done. So if we have organic processing by 2029, that's 5 years away. That will be stunning progress and is incredibly exciting. just in terms of, just to finish off, there are some issues which we're still working on and just or might just need a bit of refining and as we go. There has been a request from Ngāti Toa to have representation on this committee, which I'd be strongly supportive of. So we're just working out how that works across a whole region. But that would be amazing to have Te Ao Māori perspective very broadly represented, although there have been some great councillors here who have really helped in that respect. The vision is slightly clunky. We had a lot of discussion over that because we did want to end up with, this idea that if we had less waste, we'd have a much better place. But really, there was a strong view in the committee, including myself, that we would really need to keep that focus on less resources, which is at the heart of environmentalism. On a finite planet, we just have to use less. There was a lot of discussion about whether we have a centralised organic system or a decentralised one, and as a result of submissions from the public, we did really put in place the idea that we would have both, because not everyone will use a curbside collection. One particular area for me is that we have got rid of the action to look at getting rid of a landfill, because we've got 3 in our region, which is too many from my perspective, but we are working on a regional waste plan just to look at how we dispose of that waste over time, because they are a very bad thing, and there should be no such thing as waste, which brings me back to where I started. There's a long way to go before we get to developing those products which can truly be used over and over and over again. But look, we're here. We got there, a lot of work, and really what we're going to focus hard on is getting the organics work over the line. Deputy Mayor Foon has been very instrumental in that, and the construction and demolition. I had a council officer ask me once what was the problem with construction and demolition waste, and I almost had a cow because it is such a massive global problem. We need to go waste-free in that area too. But look, what we'll be able to do regionally through collaboration is to get those infrastructure set up, and so that people can do the right thing because they definitely want to. So a big thanks to everyone again who has been helpful, including councillors around this table, and I look forward to your questions and debate. Kia ora.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Foon.
Yes, being the alternate and the last chair of this committee, pleased to do so. So just, and I won't go, but just Councillor Pannett, thank you. This is actually your second massive regional waste plan. I don't envy you, but you really did stay the course and work well with the other councillors, and I really do thank you for this work because it was quite gruelling. Just want to thank all the officers. I think the opportunity here is collaboration between councils, and actually in the waste space we've got a really big opportunity, and if we can learn to work together there, we'll make more ground everywhere else as well. So there's a big opportunity. The last plan wasn't really as impactful as it might have been in terms of the outcome, but we did learn a lot, and a couple of great things that we did get out of it was a regional zero waste events policy or document, so that the whole region had a similar waste process, and that's where the opportunity is, that the language is the same, how we do it around here is the same, and also waste minimisation plans for new builds over 2 million, those kinds of things came out of the last plan. So good luck with this one, thanks to the team, and really looking forward to seeing the progress. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any debate. Great. Apologies. Councillor Chung.
I think that there's no doubt that that probably most of us, if not all of us, want to reduce our waste, and I do think that that it is possible to actually reduce it to a bare minimum. But what I'm concerned about when we talk about waste and how to action it, what we actually do, is the cost of actually doing these things. And so I think that education is really the key to actually getting people to reduce waste. When I walk around the neighbourhood and I look at what people throw into their rubbish bags and into their recycle bins, and clearly we do not put enough into the recycle. And so that is purely education. It's purely telling people that we don't want the stuff going off to the tip, and you can actually recycle it. And so I do think that, whether it's because my neighbours are perhaps intransigent or not listening, but it does seem to be that this can actually be done. I do have reservations regarding this organic waste, and the reason for that is the sheer cost of it. So if we're looking at spending money to actually reduce things going to the tip, then I think that there are better ways of doing it. But nonetheless, I'm going to support this because I do agree that that we do need to reduce waste everywhere as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Final comments, Councillor Pennant.
Very briefly. Deputy Mayor Fo, the point is taken about the last plan being not as impactful. That's because we need political will, and so I will be looking to you all for that. We have now got money, as I said yesterday, into the Hutt City and Porirua plans to deal with the organics, so it's starting to take shape. But yes, we do just all need to put our shoulder to the wheel. Councillor Chung, thank you for your wonderful comments. And you are a superb example, of course, of someone who does not do a lot of wasting. So, and we can all learn from your excellent example of not spending much money. And except for the watch, yeah, but it will last a long time.
Throw it away.
I think there is just a couple of points, though, which I think are important about what you made. Education is not enough. We do not have the systems in place to deal with things. My sneakers, I want resolable sneakers. You can't get, what's wrong with that? You can't get resolable sneakers at the moment. So if we could, then they would last longer. So and then there has to be a way of dealing with the sneakers when they are finished. And it is a cultural shift that we need to make, that you don't buy so much stuff, because then you can't waste so much stuff if you haven't bought it in the first place. So obviously we can all go back to our grandparents' generation where there wasn't a lot of waste going on, and think about about consumption, which is really at the heart of this issue. But look, we're on the right track. We're going to make great progress, and we've just got such an amazing team in our council staff around the region that we're going to get there, definitely.
Wonderful. Let's take that to a vote. Yes. Oh, man. Oh, no. And that has passed unanimously. Well done. Okay, thank you everyone for the work on that paper. So we now have our final item, 3.3, actions tracking. Liam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Take it as read. Any questions?
One question, one statement. 3.3, there was...
only a question.
Oh, no, yes. Two questions. We talked about grey water incentives plan. I asked a question about that and the policy and strategy work. What is the process if we want to raise that to be more of a priority going forward?
Well, can you just...
Yeah, so there was an actions tracking number 17, grey water incentives plan. So this was part of the draft district plan last term, where we wanted work to help people utilise grey water better, and that is seemingly be quite good right now. So what I would like to understand is what would be the process to how to get that reprioritised in the strategy and policy work.
I would have to take some advice from Baz if he's in the room, otherwise we can report back.
Happy to come back.
Thank you.
Second question, not pertinent particularly, but to the whole lot, could we please table the Q&A for this meeting and put it in with the agenda online? Thank you.
Kapai. Yep.
Councillor Pennant.
Liam, just a question of clarification. The Green Network Plan and the slips, which are two actions which are mentioned, it will be clear in the budget on the 15th where we've landed on that?
Look, Siobhan can pick the slips, but you've got the Green Network Plan as part of the package of initiatives for the LTP.
Is it fully funded?
I don't believe it is fully funded. It's a staged funding model yet.
Okay.
But we'll talk to that in detail.
Okay, and then we can look at the greening of the suburbs at some point.
There is also a suburban centres budget line as well.
Okay.
And that can also be discussed and debated by council.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
The proposed programme, I'm assuming, sorry, I was talking to someone else, but the question was around fixing slips.
Just so it's clear what we're putting into.
Yep, so we have increased the funding by $3 million a year for remediation works. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I will move the motion. I don't need to speak. Oh, do you have a question? Yeah.
So I got a question in regards to page 234, where it talks about the parking management plan for Newtown and Berhampur. It says it's still in progress. We made a decision last year, and a consultation is coming up. I would like to know the difference between what we decided, what's coming up. My understanding was it's a traffic resolution that's coming up, but it looks like different. The second question to that is, if this council is planning to introduce paid parking meter in Newtown and Berhampur, why are we investing money to investigate other options when it's not far away from each other?
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. The first part relates, you're correct, we have just gone live, I think, this week on the traffic resolutions for Berhampur and Newtown. As you know, the parking management plan was adopted. I think the office is just saying here it's still underway in progress as it's being implemented. Parking management relating to, would you be able to help,
No, I
Siobhan?
don't know of any plans to introduce.
Take your question on notice and we'll...
Have to come back to you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yep.
No, just I would like to remind you, yesterday I have asked this question. Siobhan and both of you were in the room. They said, yes, there is a plan to introduce paid parking.
Ah, James, I recall that question, Councillor. Yep. So
in that case, what I'm saying is, why are we spending money to consult communities when we are bringing something completely different a couple of months later? And at the same time, we're talking about cutting libraries, library hours, and the swimming pool charge increasing. It doesn't add up. So
I understand your question, Councillor, so I'll provide some written advice back to you.
Great. Okay, so now we move to debate. I will move. Would anyone like to second? Councillor O'Neill, would you like to speak? No. Is there any debate? Councillor Abdurrahman.
Kia ora whanau. I think it's really very important we get our priorities right. Not only that, get it in a way that is responding to community demands. It is very, very frustrating to see we spend all this money and time asking communities, consulting them about Newtown parking management plan, when we are coming back only a couple of months later to bring parking meters in that area. Even if we decide to bring parking meters, why we need to spend all this money consulting communities? All that frustration, the resource we're putting into it. And that is why the community is frustrated. And I think it's going to be a challenge when we go back and talk to them again in the long-term plan. I think that is really needs to be noted. If we can, we need to stop the current consultation that's already started before it takes more money and resources from officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other debate? No. In that case, let's just go to a vote. And that has passed. Thank you. We are now bringing the meeting to a close. I will end with a karakia. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapu nui, kia wātia, kia Koia rā e rongo. Kia ora.